It is approaching 11 a.m. on September 29th, 1995. We're at Plattsburgh Air Force Base in Plattsburgh to mark the ceremony commemorating the inactivation of the 380th Air Fueling Wing and the closure of Plattsburgh Air Force Base. Base will officially close tomorrow evening, the 30th of September at midnight. This will be the final ceremony taking place here. You may recall we were here about 3.5 months ago on Flag Day, June 14th, for Operation Legacy. And this crowd, I think, even outdoes that crowd. There was an extremely large crowd on Operation Legacy Day, June 14th, and today's crowd will surpass that. And as expected, it's getting full coverage from all the media. Every TV station and radio operation in and around the North Country is here to see this final farewell to Plattsburgh Air Base.
All hospitals. Hold on the floor.
Laser pointed the wrong way.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Lieutenant Colonel John Armstrong, and I will narrate today's events. Welcome to the ceremony commemorating the inactivation of the 380th Air Refueling Wing and the closure of Plattsburgh Air Force Base. This ceremony will be presided over by Lieutenant General Edwin Tenoso, Commander of the 21st Air Force. Please rise for the entrance of the official party and remain standing for the national anthem and invocation. Chaplain Wilkerson will now be leading the invocation.
thank you for your care and protection to the personnel assigned to this wing, for missions accomplished, for heroism displayed, and devotion to duty. That each member of this wing has brought great credit upon himself, this unit, upon the Plattsburgh and the United States Air Force. As people of principle and leadership, they have demonstrated through their dedicated efforts the ideals which have helped mold and make our country great. We also remember on this occasion those from this wing who have made the supreme sacrifice. We entrust them into your love and care, knowing that you are doing better things for them than we can imagine. Gracious Creator, as the colors of this wing are retired, we place ourselves and what we are about to undertake in your hands. Defend us day by day with your heavenly grace. Strengthen us in our trials and temptations. And give us courage to face the perils that may beset us. And finally, bring us in safely to our journey's end. In your presence and in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Please remain standing for the national anthem. Please be seated. We are honored today with the presence of several dignitaries, as well as many previous members of the 380th Wing. Let me begin by introducing some of the distinguished visitors. On the stage we have the Honorable John M. McHugh, U.S. Representative from the 24th District of the State of New York. The Honorable Rodney A. Coleman, Assistant Secretary of the Air Force. Mr. Albert F. Lois, Deputy Director of the Air Force Base Conversion Agency. Lieutenant General Edwin E. Tenoso, Commander of the 21st Air Force. Mr. Clyde A. Lewis, Chairman of the Plattsburgh Air Base Liaison Committee, Honorary Commander of the 21st Air Force, and Honorary Commander of the 380th Air Refueling Wing. Colonel Robert E. Dawson, Commander of the 380th Air Refueling Wing. With us in the audience are retired Lieutenant General Charles Searock, Commander of the 380th Bombardment Wing from June of 1981 to June 1983. Retired Lieutenant General Burford Darrell Larry, a former member of the 380th Bombardment Wing. Retired Major General Raymond O'Mara, Commander of the 380th Bombardment Wing from June 1985 to June of 1986. Retired Brigadier General Thomas Tobin, Commander of the 380th Bombardment Wing from May of 1979 to June 1981. From the Vermont Air National Guard with us are Brigadier General Ronald Morgan and Brigadier General David Ladd. We're also honored today by the presence of the following men who were part of the initial cadre of airmen at Plattsburgh Air Force Base in 1955. From Corpus Christi, Texas, Mr. Reynaldo Yerlis. From San Antonio, Texas, Mr. Lucio Felix. From Stockton, California, Mr. Bob Mihalik. From Kent, Washington, Mr. Dean Farber. Bill Wilson of Flint, Michigan. Mr. Wilbert Goodwin of Millville, New Jersey, and Arlen Cresthold of Indianapolis, Indiana. Both Plattsburgh Air Force Base and the 380th have long and storied histories. Before proceeding with today's ceremony, let us briefly review that history. I will begin with the Plattsburgh story. The land Plattsburgh Air Force Base occupies has been maintained as a military installation almost continuously since the early part of the 19th century. The site owed its early importance to its location on Lake Champlain. During the colonial era, the lake provided the only method of transportation through the wilderness area of what is now New York and Vermont, and held great strategic importance as an avenue of transportation for Indian war parties, explorers, and British, French, and American soldiers, as well as for materials. In 1609, Samuel de Champlain, the French founder of Quebec, discovered Lake Champlain for France and fought the Iroquois Indians near its southern end. After the first French raids on the Iroquois nation in 1665, the lake became a military highway for both French and British expeditions. In 1776, Benedict Arnold commanded an American fleet that fought the British near Valcour Island in a battle that Winston Churchill maintained was vital to the outcome of the war. After the end of the Revolutionary War, there was no military activity in the Plattsburgh area for over 30 years. But at the beginning of the War of 1812, Plattsburgh again became a center of military activity, housing a considerable force of regular troops. Infantry forces were under the command of the noted explorer Colonel Zebulon Montgomery Pike and Colonel Cromwell Pierce. On 3 September 1814, some 14,000 British troops crossed the Canadian border and advanced southward, meeting little resistance until they reached the town of Plattsburgh. There, Brigadier General Alexander Macomb, with a force of 1,500 regulars and 700 militia, stopped the British Army at the Saranac River by burning the bridge, making any attempt by the British to cross the river a costly proposition. The American forces were deployed in 3 forts, Brown, Scott, and Moreau. Both Forts Scott and Moreau were located on the present site of Plattsburgh Air Force Base's east side. Fort Brown was located close to the high river bank near a bend in the stream. Seeing the deployed American force, the British commander decided to wait the arrival of the British fleet before attempting to cross the Saranac and attack the 3 American strongholds. However, the newly constructed American fleet was in control of the waterways in the Plattsburgh area. The British fleet sailed south into Lake Champlain to engage the Americans on the morning of 11 September 1814. After a fierce battle, the American fleet, under the command of Lieutenant Thomas McDonough, emerged the victor. When the British Army commander learned of the American victory on Lake Champlain, he ordered his forces to retreat to Canada during the early mornings of the following day. Thus ended the Battle of Plattsburgh. Many historians believe the American victory over the British fleet was the turning point of the war, for after defeating the British, the United States was first recognized as a possible world power. After the War of 1812 ended, Plattsburgh was not abandoned as it had been after the Revolution. Instead, the original military reservation, consisting of 200 acres, was purchased by the federal government on 30 December 1814. Later, additional parcels of land were acquired, and stone barracks were built to house Plattsburgh Barracks personnel in 1838. One of the old stone barracks still stands and is listed in the National Registry of Historical Places. Records show that troops were stationed in the Plattsburgh area from 1814 through 1846, though there was little military activity other than training and maneuvers. The barracks were unoccupied during the period of the Mexican War from 1846 to 1848, but became active again from 1848 through 1861. Troops quartered here in 1861 were sent to engage in battle during the Civil War. In 1865, the Army returned to Plattsburgh Barracks and maintained its presence through 1944. Though a participant in every major American war, Plattsburgh was not nationally recognized for its military contributions until the Plattsburgh idea proved influential in winning World War I. In 1915, Major General Leonard Wood instituted the Citizens Military Training Camps, the first in a series of training camps to make officers out of civilians. Over 5,000 men arrived at Plattsburgh in May of 1917 for the first of the large training camps. By the end of 1917, over 17,000 men had been trained, and future commissioned officers received training here every year through 1939. After the First World War, the 26th Infantry Regiment of the Iron 1st Division was stationed at Plattsburgh Barracks. It remained there until World War II, when, in 1941, the unit left Plattsburgh and began the long trek from the sands of North Africa to the fields of Normandy. A skeleton garrison of the 26th Infantry was maintained at Plattsburgh until March 1942, when the 36th Combat Engineers arrived. Plattsburgh Barracks served as a training site for combat engineers during 1942 and 1943. From March 1944 to the end of that year, Plattsburgh Barracks, renamed Camp McDonough, was used as an indoctrination station for naval officers, graduating nearly 3,000 men. Decommissioned as a naval training school on 1 January 1945, Camp McDonough reverted to the U.S. Army. Plans were announced in June 1945 to make Plattsburgh Barracks into one of the finest convalescent hospitals in the U.S. In addition to being a convalescent facility, the mission of an Army Air Force's separation base was added in September 1945. In early November, Plattsburgh Barracks was scheduled to be released for civilian use. On March 15, 1946, the Army Air Force dismissed the 50 civilian employees at the barracks and turned Plattsburgh Barracks over to the Army Engineers to prepare for closing. Meanwhile, the bill was introduced into Congress in February 1946 to convert the barracks into a GI university. And in August of that year, Plattsburgh Barracks housed Champlain College. Part of the Association of Colleges of Upper New York, it was established as a 2-year institution for the education of World War II veterans. In the summer of 1950, Champlain College of Plattsburgh, now a 4-year college, became part of the state university system and continued operations until 1953, when on 1 December the property was transferred back to the federal government. Liaison between the community and the Air Force was initiated and maintained by the newly formed Plattsburgh Air Base Liaison Committee. The Air Base Liaison Committee worked closely with Air Force officials on the establishment, construction, and activation of Plattsburgh Air Force Base. Groundbreaking ceremonies for the Air Base at Plattsburgh were held on 29 January 1954. And with construction ongoing, on 1 July 1955, Plattsburgh Barracks was designated the home of the 380th Bombardment Wing and renamed Plattsburgh Air Force Base. And now, Lieutenant Colonel Peter Gleschko will chronicle the past of the 380th Wing.
The distinguished and colorful career of the history of the 380th dates back to 28 October 1942 when the unit was established. The 380th Bombardment Group Heavy was activated on 3 November 1942 at Davis-Monthan Field, Tucson, Arizona. Originally, the 380th Bombardment Group consisted of 4 bombardment squadrons, the 528th, 529th, 530th, and 531st. Shortly after activation, the group moved to Biggs Field, Texas, where it underwent extensive combat training. After completing training at Biggs Field, the 380th Bomb Group moved to Larry Field, Denver, Colorado, where it finalized combat training. The group arrived in Australia in early May of 1943 to begin combat operations. The only B-24 unit attached to the Royal Australian Air Force, its purpose was to secure Australia's safety against a threatened Japanese invasion. Throughout the more than 2 years of combat operations in the Pacific, the 380th Bombardment Group consistently played a major role in the long offensive plan against Japan, leaving them with only remnants of a withered and dying empire. The 380th conducted operations throughout 1 million square miles, the largest combat area in any war zone, and earned 2 distinguished unit citations. The 380th Bombardment Group was inactivated from Manila on 20 February 1946. It was redesignated from heavy to very heavy on 13 May 1947 and reactivated on 29 May 1947 at MacDill Field, Tampa, Florida, as a reserve unit. The group remained an inactive reserve unit until called to active duty on 1 May 1951. 15 days later, on 16 May 1951, after personnel had been processed for active duty and transferred to other units for service in the Korean War, the group was again inactivated. 4 years later, the Department of Defense decided that Plattsburgh, New York's long military history and strategic location made it an ideal choice for a new Strategic Air Command Air Force base. As construction was ongoing, the 380th Bombardment Wing Medium activated at Plattsburgh Air Force Base on 11 July 1955. At the same time, the 528th, 529th, and 530th Bombardment Squadrons were activated. In December 1955, the first B-47 aircraft was assigned to the wing. However, instead of going to Plattsburgh Air Force Base, it was delivered to Pine Castle Air Force Base, Florida, because of delays in completing the Plattsburgh facilities. On 1 June 1956, a B-47 assigned to the 528th Bomb Squadron left Pine Castle and landed at Plattsburgh. The remainder of the wing's 30 bombers departed Pine Castle and began arriving at the base on 18 June 1956. In September 1956, the 380th Air Refueling Squadron, flying KC-97s, was transferred to Plattsburgh from Sheppard Air Force Base, Texas. The wing was declared combat ready on 1 October 1956. An announcement was made late in 1960 that a strategic wing would be activated at Plattsburgh in 1961, and on 15 September 1964, the Plattsburgh area became the home of 12 Atlas F missile sites, and the wing was the only intercontinental ballistic missile base east of the Mississippi River. The wing was designated the 380th Strategic Aerospace Wing Heavy on that date. The wing received its first KC-135A refueling aircraft on 18 September 1964. The wing received both A and Q model aircraft, significantly increasing the wing's air refueling capability. The Q model aircraft gave the wing the capability to refuel SR-71 aircraft, which required a special JP-7 fuel. To replace the aging B-47s, the wing was assigned the B-52G Stratofortress bomber in June of 1966. The 380th actively participated in the Vietnam War through a series of temporary duty assignments, as both tanker and bomber crews of the 380th were assigned to Southeast Asia in support of B-52G Arclight and KC-135 Young Tiger operations. Shortly after the arrival of B-52Gs in 1956, the wing was notified that it would convert to the FB-111 bomber in 1971. Facilities to accommodate the FB-111 were completed in 1969, and the last B-52G departed Plattsburgh bound for Fairchild Air Force Base, Washington, on 5 January 1971. Colonel Gerhard R. Abenhoff, 380th Bomb Wing Commander, piloted the first FB-111, christened the Spirit of Plattsburgh, to the base during open house ceremonies on 17 July 1971. On 1 July 1972, the 380th Strategic Aerospace Wing Heavy was redesignated the 380th Bombardment Wing Medium. The 380th was the first FB-111 equipped wing to win SAC's bombing and navigation competition in 1974. FB-111A and KC-135 crews and support personnel from the 380th combined their efforts and proved to be the best of the best. The 380th was awarded the Fairchild Trophy for the highest combined bomber and tanker scores during this competition. After winning SAC's next bombing and navigation competition again in 1976, the wing went on to win the Fairchild Trophy in 1977 and 1978 for 4 in a row, a feat not equaled before or since. During the 1980s, the 380th Bombardment Wing was the largest tactical wing in number of aircraft assigned in the Strategic Air Command. Tactical units of the wing were 2 FB-111 squadrons, the 528th, 529th, 2 KC-135 squadrons, the 310th and 380th, and 1 Combat Crew Training Squadron, the 4007 CCTS. The wing was also home to Associated Maintenance and Support Squadrons, the 380th Combat Support Group, and the U.S. Air Force Hospital, Plattsburgh. 1984 proved to be a banner year for the 380th. On 31 January, the Secretary of the Air Force ordered the consolidation of the inactivated 380th Bombardment Group with the 380th Bombardment Wing, permanently transferring all the wing history, lineage, and honors of the group to the wing. The wing went on to win an unprecedented 5th Fairchild Trophy at Bomb Comp, also winning its 2nd Saunders Trophy for Best Air Refueling Unit. On 31 July 1985, the coveted Omaha Trophy came to the 380th, recognizing it as the best overall SAC wing for 1984. During 1986, the wing was awarded its 3rd Air Force Outstanding Unit Award for superior achievement from 1 July 1983 to 30 June 1985. In 1990, when President George Bush ordered the first U.S. forces into action for Desert Storm, the 380th was there. The wing took on duties as lead unit of the 1703rd Air Refueling Wing Provisional at King Khalid International Airport, Saudi Arabia, in support of Desert Storm. The wing performed superbly while flying air refueling and transport missions throughout the conflict and during Desert Calm. The wing was also involved in performing staging duties for overseas deployments from Plattsburgh Air Force Base, providing personnel and equipment for deployment and supplying refueling support. While the air refueling mission expanded, the FB-111 mission was drawing to a close. From September 1990 to June 1991, the wing prepared to change from a bomber to a tanker operation. The last FB-111 left Plattsburgh on 10 July 1991. The wing was redesignated the 380th Air Refueling Wing on 1 July 1991. In April 1992, the wing was subjected to the last operational readiness inspection conducted by Headquarters Strategic Air Command. The excellent results came as no surprise. On 1 June 1992, the 380th was put under the newly activated Air Mobility Command. Operational control of tanker assets of geographically separated units at Loring Air Force Base, Maine, and Griffiths Air Force Base, New York, came to the 380th Air Refueling Wing. In the final SAC bomb comp during 1992, this wing's tanker crews placed second for the Saunders Trophy. On 30 September 1992, the wing received its first R model KC-135, christened Spirit of Plattsburgh. On 7 December 1992, the 380th was tasked as primary refueler supporting Operation Restore Hope, humanitarian relief for Somalia missions. The wing proved to be the cornerstone of this air bridge operation, flying 224 missions, offloading 12.6 million pounds of fuel with no missed refuelings during the most severe weather months. The wing again deployed 12 KC-135 and 325 aircrew and support personnel to Morón Air Base, Spain, to refuel Restore Hope 2 flights over the Mediterranean from 10 October through 11 November 1993. In response to the 1993 BRAC decision to close Plattsburgh Air Force Base, the wing began the drawdown process by shifting and reassigning its resources. In the middle of this process, during April and May of 1994, Air Mobility Command conducted its first ever tanker-only unit operational readiness inspection, lasting 3 weeks and resulting in a highly satisfactory rating. The 380th Operations Group, along with the 310th and 380th Air Refueling Squadrons, were deactivated 26 September 1994 in a ceremony which concluded with the takeoff of KC-135R tail number 638873, bound for Grand Forks Air Force Base, North Dakota, and piloted by Colonel Robert E. Dawson, with Mr. Clyde A. Lewis, Honorary Wing Commander, on board. The flight lifted off at 1109 hours local, marking the end of an era for Plattsburgh. Drawdown actions continued, bringing us to this very historic date.
The Governor of New York has issued the following proclamation. State of New York, Executive Chamber. Citation. On September 29, 1995, ceremonies commemorating the inactivation of the 380th Air Refueling Wing and closure of Plattsburgh Air Force Base will take place. Plattsburgh Air Force Base, located on the shore of Lake Champlain, has been maintained as a military institution since the early part of the 19th century. The local community and the Air Base Liaison Committee have always been staunch supporters of a military presence in the North Country. Plattsburgh Air Force Base has played an important role in our country's Air Force mission deployment and has been a great economic asset to the Empire State. But with the end of the Cold War, the need for a strong military defense in the United States has been redefined. As closure comes to Plattsburgh Air Force Base, so too comes the end of one of the most distinguished and colorful units in Air Force history. Today, as we commemorate the inactivation of the 380th Air Refueling Wing and the closing of one of New York's great Air Force bases, we honor those who have served these two institutions with pride and dignity for more than 180 years. We now bid farewell to a base and wing, its officers and airmen, who have served in the best tradition of the United States Air Force and America's Defense Forces. Now, therefore, I, George E. Pataki, Governor of the State of New York, do hereby confer this special citation upon Plattsburgh Air Force Base and the 380th Air Refueling Wing, and extend best wishes to all. Signed, George E. Pataki, Governor, September 21st, 1995. We will now proceed with the inactivation ceremony of the 380th Air Refueling Wing and its two remaining groups, the 380th Support Group and the 380th Medical Group. The inactivation ceremony is simple, yet very significant. A unit's inactivation is symbolized by the furling and sheathing of the organizational guidon or flag. By inactivating a unit, that unit and the Air Force are able to preserve the unit's heritage for future use. Should the 380th be called upon again to serve this nation, the histories of the 380th Bombardment Group Heavy, the 380th Bombardment Wing, and the 380th Air Refueling Wing will be part of that new unit's heritage. Please rise. Attention to orders. Special Order GAXT-15, dated 14 July 1995. By the order of the Secretary of the Air Force, the following units are inactivated. Concurrently, unit designations will revert to the control of the Department of the Air Force. Consult Air Force Instruction 84-101 for disposition of flags and other historic artifacts. Personnel, supply, equipment, organization documentation, and organization fund actions will be accomplished by the appropriate unit. Personnel data changes will be required in accordance with current directives. Signed, Bobby O. Floyd, Brigadier General, United States Air Force. Headquarters, Air Mobility Command, Director of Plans. 380th Support Group, Colonel James Richards, Commander. Inactivated, effective 30 September, 1995. th Medical Group, Colonel James DeLucas, Commander. Inactivated, effective 30 September, 1995. th Air Refueling Wing, Colonel Robert Dawson, Commander. Inactivated, effective 30 September, 1995. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated for comments from Congressman McHugh.
Thank you very much. Today is a time of many emotions, so many feelings I know that we're all experiencing at this time. It is perhaps most of all a moment of disbelief, that empty, hollow feeling we all experience when we first learn of the loss of a loved one, a friend, a member of the family. That sorrow that washes over us in the knowledge that no matter how bright tomorrow may be, things will never, ever be the same again. Along with our pain is anger. Anger born in the fact that what has happened here is wrong. Wrong for the Air Force, wrong for the taxpayers of this nation, and wrong for the great people of Plattsburgh who have for so long served this place and this nation so well. What happened here was not based on merit, but on ambition. What happened here was not based on law, but rather an act committed by those who would hide behind the law to mask their personal agendas. We are here today because a few men forgot their oaths. They abandoned their nation and their fellow citizens for self-interest. As much as that hurts, as much as the anger we feel, and although we will not, nor should we ever forget what wrong they did, we should not let the presence of their memories soil this moment. For theirs is a fate that is far worse. Today is a solemn occasion, a celebration of honor, duty, glory, valor, and devotion to country. Words that they can never know. Today is a time to recall and to reflect, to remember how for more than 200 years this place has served the defense of our great nation. As the longest continuously operating military facility anywhere in America, Plattsburgh has always served this country. As you heard here this morning, from the days of our revolution to the fall of the Soviet Union, the men and women of Plattsburgh have never failed our nation's call. For all that history, for all of the different missions that have gone forth from this place, we are here this morning to say a special goodbye to Plattsburgh Air Force Base. That modern defender of democracy that was born some 4 decades ago through the foresight and the hard work of many great Americans. One special one of whom has joined us on this podium this morning, Clyde Lewis. Throughout that time, we heard the great sounds of B-47s and B-52s and FB-111s and KC-135s roaring across this great blue sky. We can all take comfort in the fact that knowing that the men and women of Plattsburgh Air Force Base were protecting our nation's freedoms and keeping all of us from harm's way. The men and women who served over the years at Plattsburgh and the local community gained a great respect for each other. And as we see reaffirmed here this morning, a very special bond was born. Countless servicemen and women became so fond of Plattsburgh that after their long and dedicated careers in the military, they settled here in this area. And is there any greater compliment that they could have paid you, could have paid all of us? And through the experiences that they brought with them, we learned more about the world around us. And clearly, no matter what has occurred here, that bond, that special relationship between the Air Force, between the military, and this community will always continue. And let me remind us that as to those brave men and women whom we have known as friends and neighbors, and who are still with us now in these difficult times, we should neither forget nor waver from our duty to them. No base closure commissioner, no rogue commissioner will ever be able to take that away from us. And it is for those wonderful experiences and for that opportunity that we can, in good conscience and light hearts, give thanks here today. We're also gathered as a moment of passing to give thanks for the knowledge that the same spirit that has always made Plattsburgh such a special place will carry us into the future, no matter how difficult that future surely seems at this time. Because this community has always given birth to great leaders, some of whom we know so very well. Senator Ron Stafford, Congressman, I should say, Assemblyman Chris Orthoff, Mayor Clyde Ravager, Supervisor Art McFay, working with their legislature, the County Board and Bob Bruno. And all of those people who devoted so much to Team Plattsburgh and later through their efforts in the PIDC and of Forest Park. And I note as well that the Secretary of State, the Honorable Sandy Treadwell, a friend and a neighbor from just south of here in Westport, has joined us as a representative of the governor of the state as well. It will take that kind of leadership and that kind of cooperation. But we know that those who have always worked on our behalf to provide us so many great yesterdays will provide us great tomorrows as well. But as we turn our faces toward the future, let us not forget that glorious past. Let us always remember the honor of these past 200 years. Few communities have been so blessed to have been called by its nation so many times. And no community at any time has ever approached Plattsburgh's record of glory in answering those calls. And so, as we hear only the silence that the skies above will now bring us, let our hearts be filled with the overwhelming sense of pride, and let our voices forever speak of the great glory that was Plattsburgh. God bless this place. God bless all of you, and God bless America.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Assistant Secretary of the Air Force, the Honorable Rodney A. Coleman.
Thank you very much, John. It's a very significant day for both the military members who have been a part of this outstanding wing of Plattsburgh, and many military members who have passed through here over the years who feel a strong allegiance to history. Let me commend Colonel Dawson for his leadership and all the men and women who have been a part of the history of this historic base and its contributions to the defense of our nation. All of you have every right to feel a sense of great pride. It is only because you did your job that we find ourselves here today, downsizing our current military structure to reflect the changes brought as a result of the end of the Cold War. Today marks a new beginning for this tract of land known as Plattsburgh Air Force Base. Today, this base begins its formal transition from an active military base to a facility which will become home to a new economic engine for the Plattsburgh region. The Air Force has been and will continue to work with the community reuse group and the community leaders as we move towards conversion of this base from military to civilian use. In July 1993, President Clinton announced his 5-part program for economic revitalization of communities affected by the draft. His desire was to speed the recovery of communities where military bases were slated to close. Rapid redevelopment and creation of new jobs were his top goals. as we have been since this base was placed on the list in 1993. The Air Force is committed to working with this community to help make that happen as fast as possible. We see ourselves as the facilitators in this process, partnering with you in the community as you develop a reuse plan, market the facilities, and seek users for this property. This is no small task. However, I am impressed with Plus, led by Chairman Michael Whalen and Chief Executive Officer David Holmes, that they are up to the challenge. My staff has been working closely with your community for 2 years now, and I know that it has been a very productive period. We've also had good positive communications with John McHugh in Washington. And I want to take this opportunity to commend Representative McHugh and his staff for the support and assistance that they have provided. I can honestly tell you all here in Plattsburgh that they have been working diligently on behalf of all your interests. I'm also well aware of the fact that today is not a day that this community has looked forward to. I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge that this is not a particularly happy day for the Air Force either. Everyone familiar with this area has always spoken very highly of this space, its fine facilities, the beautiful surrounding area, and of course, the people of Plattsburgh. I can honestly tell you that during my Air Force career, and now as the Assistant Secretary, I have never heard a bad word from anyone who is stationed at this base at any time. They all relate to me the fondest memories of the people of this community, who showed them nothing but the utmost of hospitality. The community made them feel like this was really home, even though most of the troops that were here over the years were hundreds or even thousands of miles away from their homes. For those of you who will remain a vital part of this community, you will now have the opportunity to convert this space so that it will keep adding value and be a viable, productive part of your community. We look forward to continuing our cooperative relationship with Plattsburgh. As you know, the Air Force Base Conversion Agency has a staff here led by John Hoover, working with you on a daily basis. In Washington, we are supporting his efforts to ensure that the transition is a smooth one. As your plan comes together, you can expect us to keep on giving you that fine working relationship that I feel that we have already established. My comments today would not be complete without addressing the father of this facility, Clyde Lewis, who has dedicated much of his life to this Air Force base. Clyde Lewis was here at the start of the Air Force Base, and it is appropriate that he is here today as this community takes its next step forward. From swords into plowshares, and after all, that's what this is all about. In the Air Force, we think of Clyde Lewis as more than a concerned citizen looking out for his community. We think of Clyde Lewis as a true patriot, dedicated not only to his community, but to his nation. Without a doubt, Clyde Lewis's legacy will live forever in the minds of this community, as well as the United States Air Force. Secretary Whitnall fondly remembers her visit here and the testimonial dinner that you organized on her behalf, Clyde. And not just the Secretary, but all of us who have come to Plattsburgh remember you, not just because of the dinners that you so willingly organized, but because of your commitment, your sincerity, and most of all, because of the passion that you have demonstrated throughout your life and what you believe in. Plattsburgh is lucky. The United States Air Force is lucky. And the United States of America is lucky that your passion was us, the United States Air Force. So Clyde, if you will come forward for a minute, I'd like to present you a token on behalf of the Secretary of the Air Force for all that you have done for this community. for all of us to follow in our daily lives. And I would hope these young people that represent the future would understand Clyde throughout your schooling. We thank you, Clyde, from the bottom of our hearts. And to you, ladies and gentlemen of Plattsburgh, on behalf of the Secretary and the Chief of Staff of the United States Air Force, I wish you Godspeed.
Ladies and gentlemen, Chairman of the Plattsburgh Air Base Liaison Committee, Honorary Commander of the 21st Air Force, and Honorary Commander of the 380th Air Refueling Wing, Mr. Clyde A. Lewis.
Congress, thank you, Secretary Coleman, General Venosa, Colonel Dawson, men and women of the 320, and your neighbors. Secretary Coleman, before this event, expressed to me the thanks and greetings of Dr. Whittle and General Fogelman. When you return to Washington, Mr. Secretary, please tell them the Plattsburgh community is alive, very well, and during the past 2 years, during the base closure process, has acted exemplary. Everything has been done first class, as we assured both the Secretary and General Fogelman. And a great deal of the credit goes to Colonel Dawson. As I said last night at our 154th civic testimonial, since late 1952, when we began the drive for Plattsburgh Air Force Base, formed the Air Base Liaison Committee, and for 43 successive years have been privileged to represent the community and do that which has been done. Secretary Coleman, it's easy to work with this community. It understands the military, respects the military. It will do anything it can. It always has. And it will continue to do so. But let me just place this in proper perspective. As I said last night at our civic testimonial, this is not a weight. It's not a feeling. It's the end of a chapter that began back in 1952 and ends in 1995. The next chapter of this installation will be the base conversion, park, and down the line. I assure you, in my judgment, my opinion, and many of your co-workers in the Pentagon, the military will come back to Plattsburgh. As I look at the future, I can see the base probably being a joint use, military and commercial, because this base is destined, if it is destined for anything, is to be a part of the Air Mobility Command. The Air Mobility Command, no nuclear storage, no weapon storage, And that's ideal for joint use. The same as you're doing the Scott Air Force Base in Illinois now, the headquarters of AMC, becoming joint use. As I reminisce back, let me go back to the beginning. In our first civic testimonial, General LeMay, then Zigzag, move on to the groundbreaking ceremonies, the dedications, the activation of the 380th, and today, it's always been perfect weather. And as an old pilot, there's nothing like Plattsburgh for flying conditions. And I can remember working with General LeMay. This installation is the first installation in the Air Force where they constructed a single runway during the process of developing the base. There were two runways. And they kept coming back to the weather and those of us here. And because of the northeast-southwest prevailing winds, the outer runways, because of those conditions, they opted for a single runway. What a runway it is. 11,750 feet of concrete, 14 inches, 300 feet wide. It's a treasure. It belongs to the nation, it belongs to the Air Force, and it'll be used once again. And that'll begin another chapter. And I said last night, I know for Joe Bornstein and myself, we've been a part of 154 civic testimonials. And God granting, I can't make too many commitments at age 82. But I do hope the good Lord will allow me to live long enough to be a part of the next civic testimony to honor the Air Force here at Plattsburgh. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Commander of the 21st Air Force, Lieutenant General Edwin Tenoso.
Thank you, and good morning, Congressman McHugh, Mr. Coleman, fellow general officers, my honorary numbered Air Force Commander, Mr. Clyde Lewis, Mr. Lois, distinguished guests, but primarily friends of Plattsburgh and members of the Plattsburgh wing, the 380th. I could spend a great deal of time today extolling the many accomplishments of the 380th Air Refueling Wing, and of course, the men and women who made Plattsburgh such a formidable force for so many years. But it has already been done in a manner that, which I could not begin to rival, because the accomplishments of the 380th and Plattsburgh Air Force Base never have and never will have a stronger advocate than history itself. And as I have followed the inactivation of the 380th, I have been truly impressed with the professionalism, the teamwork, the class that you have shown in preparing for the inactivation of your wing. What you have gone through in preparing for the closure of Plattsburgh has not been easy, and anyone associated with the military knows how difficult it is to prepare for departure and to say goodbye. But when you were given your orders, you carried them out with pride and with skill. That's the mark of a true professional. Doing what is asked no matter how difficult or how heartbreaking the challenge. And let me also take a moment to congratulate Colonel Bob Dawson and Darlene Dawson for providing such extraordinary leadership during very challenging and turbulent times. You have done an outstanding job of leading the military and the civilians of this wing through a most difficult set of challenges, and we thank you for your dedication, your loyalty, and your hard work. But our deepest and most heartfelt thanks and respect must go to our distinguished guests and friends from the local community. The Air Force has been fortunate to have your friendship for over 40 years, supporting and working with those who have served at Plattsburgh Air Force Base. The 380th Air Refueling Wing has been able to accomplish its mission so well, in large part because of you. And for your support and your friendship, we are greatly in your debt. The 380th Air Refueling Wing has been defending freedom around the world for many years. When we consider its role and all that has been accomplished, from winning the Cold War to the recent participation in humanitarian operations, everyone, military, civilian, families, friends, and supporters in the local community, each of you can be proud that you played a part in those successes. The people I see before me today and those you represent from years gone by are not forgotten, will not be forgotten, because your sacrifices, your dedication, and your persistent thirst for success have left a lasting mark on our military, our Air Force, and our nation. And on behalf of the United States Air Force and a grateful nation, thank you very much. God bless all of you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the commander of the 380th Air Refueling Wing, Colonel Robert Dawson. Congressman McHugh, Mr. Coleman, General Snoso, many visiting general officers we have here today, and women of the 380th Air Refueling Wing, of course, Mr. Clyde Lewis, and our other many friends in this community. Today we are closing a significant chapter in the history of Plattsburgh, New York. The military presence in this community dates back to the beginning days of our country, and over the past 40 years, the Air Force's 380th Wing has been a part of this wonderful community. Together we played an important role in the successful conclusions of the Cold War and the Gulf War. Over the years, the 380th has earned the reputation of being a winner, and continuously we have lived up to the motto of being the best of the best. Even after the unanticipated decision to close the base, we continue to be leaders in the evolving tanker mobility mission. Always on the leading edge, we were the first active duty KC-135 wing to receive an operational readiness inspection under the mobility mission. I was extremely proud of our people during a very long and taxing evaluation. We then turned our attention to the closure mission. In typical 380th fashion, the planning was thorough, the execution was flawless. We focused our attention on our people, and we tried our best to meet their needs. Base closure is about disposing of facilities and equipment, but more importantly, it is about people and how their lives are impacted.
We did the best we could with a very tough mission. I'm very proud of the job you have all done. We have closed this base in a dignified manner and a professional manner. For the men and women of the 380th Air Refueling Wing, the mission is complete. Well done. Well done. To our many friends in this community, thanks for making us part of your family. We wish you the best in the reuse of this facility. I am confident that the warm spirit of the North Country will sustain you in your many endeavors. Best wishes for the future. May God bless this place in a very special way. We will never forget you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the closure of Plattsburgh Air Force Base as an active installation and is transferred to the Air Force Base Conversion Agency for caretaking as the base grounds and facilities transition to local community reuse will now be symbolized by the lowering of the American flag and raising of a new flag presented by Mr. Albert Lois, Deputy Director of the Air Force Base Conversion Agency. Once lowered, the current flag will be presented to Lieutenant General Tenosa, who will then present it to Mr. Clyde Lewis, Chairman of the Plattsburgh Air Base Liaison Committee and the man recognized as the father of Plattsburgh Air Force Base. Mr. Lewis has agreed to ensure the safekeeping and display of this flag at an appropriate location within the local community. Prior to the flag being lowered, past band director of Peru High School and Civil Air Patrol Lieutenant Colonel Lynn Wilkie will sound retreat. Ladies and gentlemen, the flag ceremony. Sound retreat. ceremony. Thank you for attending. Also, a special thanks to the Plattsburgh High School Band, directed by Ms. Liz Sullivan, for their outstanding performance today. Please remain standing for the marches and the party. Following the playing of the airport song, you are welcome to join us for a reception to be held across the street along with Building 100.
I'm glad to see the military hasn't changed. Let's go ahead, Jack. There you go, Joe. Good. Here, I'll get this. CBS. You like that way you don't got to shoot, huh? It's nice. People right behind you.
Put your stuff away. Go to the reception for a few